I'm sitting there and I hear something. And I'm seeing something in my peripheral. And I look this way. This took place in 2005, 2006, and early 2007. I was a roofer. I had a roofing business for years, and things were kind of tough at the time. It was right around December of 2005. Katrina had just happened. I'm sure you guys remember that disaster. Anyway, so things were tough. It was around Christmas time. And I knew I wasn't going to have enough money for the winter to pay all the company bills off and, be able to survive. It's pretty much a squirrel's game in the contracting business, especially in roofing, because what you have to do is all the money that you're making in the spring, summer, and fall, you got to make sure and have it put back so you can pay the bills. Anyway, so there's a roofing forum. Back in the day, forums were pretty popular. People get on there and talk back and forth, whatnot. So I ran into a couple contractors, and one mentioned to me there's a roofing contractor in New Orleans that that was in need of contractors down there to help them out after Katrina. So I thought, why not? Packed up my bags, threw it in the back of the truck, went on down there and started working. I met a bunch of people down there, started doing roofs, and I've done some fences. And I ran into one contractor. He was like, "Man, you're good." He goes, "You do this all on your own?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I'll tell you what, I've got a ton of roofs over in Miami that need done." So I was like, Miami? I'm not from a big town in Ohio. New Orleans was kind of scary to me anyway. And I was like, you know what, let me see the list. So I looked at the list and I was like, man. He said, and this is what you're going to get paid. So he's going down the list and he goes, I'll sign a contract with you and all. I was like, okay, that's good enough. So I packed up right around March and went down to Miami, was doing a bunch of work down there, making really good money. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just move the family down. And I was like, but I don't want them to be in the Miami area. You know what I mean? And in order for me to get my contractor's license down there, I had to work under another contractor before I could get my license there. Like I had my license in the state of Ohio. So I was like, that's fair enough. I'll just drive back and forth and commute and go back home on the weekends, So I moved the family. We moved over to Valrico, Florida. Really nice home, man. It was beautiful. Had cathedral ceilings, it was probably close to 3,000 square foot. It was really nice. So I had my wife and two kids, and one was age 9, the other one was age 12. So I moved them down there right around June of 2006, and everything was going great. I was commuting back and forth to Miami. Then next thing I know, 2 weeks after they moved there, the guy I was doing work for has a heart attack. And I'm like, oh man, it's terrible for him. So I'm in contact with his administrative assistant because he is a single guy, and she said that he is going to be all right, but he broke the news to me that he is getting out of the business. And I was like, oh God. So he has given it to his brother, and his brother didn't want any outside help. They wanted to do it all in-house. And they had their own crews to do it. So therefore, boom, I'm out of work. No big deal. I thought, okay, I'll start reaching out, networking with people, this, that, and the other. And then I finally landed an interview. I get in the car and I'm driving to the interview. This was like 2 weeks after he had his heart attack. And then the transmission goes out of the car. Had no kind of signs or anything. So I'm thinking, okay, not a big deal. It's just, life happens. And then it was really strange because I was still looking for work, but no callbacks or anything. And of course, with me being new to the area, probably not a lot of people, would take the outsiders. No big deal. But then a few other things started happening. Just really strange, off the wall things. One thing happened another week after that is I started getting a burning sensation on my side. I was like, what the heck is going on? And I lifted my shirt. My wife said, well, you got sores on the side of your back. I was like, sores? What the heck why would I have sores on the side of my back? What's this burning stuff? It was shingles. Now, mind you, I was 34 years old. Shingles at 34? Okay. So that was pretty painful. Had the numbness and the burning and all kinds of crazy stuff. But I don't wish that on anybody. So going on into the details here, one thing after another. Then when we got the car fixed, it cost around $2,400-$2,500. I can't remember the exact number, but we needed a transmission. So the transmission got built and we had to rent a car. We was going to pick up this rent-a-car, and on the way back, we get a phone call while we're in our car, and it's the Valrico Police Department. We're like, why is the police department calling us? And then they said, you need to call this number here. And it was my wife's phone. I was like, okay, why do they have my wife's phone? We were all in the car. We were all in the car together. I looked at my wife. I was like, you have your phone on you? She was like, no. And I was like, that's typical. She never carried her phone. She still doesn't to this day. I mean, I don't even know why she has one, but oh well. Anyway, so I call it, and they said they found someone breaking into our house. And I was like, good God, are you kidding me? So we rush back, and they have a couple people in the back of the car. Luckily, the neighbors that live behind us called about it. And the crazy thing is, this is a decent area. This isn't like real ghetto or anything like that. And it was pretty nice area. So I was really surprised. Anyway, so we're looking around the house and everything. And then we were looking to see, what was stolen. Looked like some CDs and stuff like that. Nothing too big. But then they took me back to my daughter's room. This is the funny part. It's like, yeah, they really trashed this room. I looked at it. I was like, no, that's my daughter. It's no big deal. They didn't do anything to this room. Anyway, so going on to come to think about it, I was still having a tough time getting a job. And I started losing my appetite for some reason. Started going into a very depressed mode, which is not like me. I'm usually go, 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 don't let anything stop you. Just keep going. And I just started not eating. And things were changing with me. And my wife could see it. At the time, I thought it was because wasn't getting a job or work. So anyway, I got bored at nighttime and got in front of the computer desk, and curiosity gets the best of you, and I'm just sitting there in front of the computer desk while everyone's in bed. I think it was like 11:30 at night, and so I was like, how's this built? So then I started learning how web pages were built and stuff, and started, messing around with that stuff late at night. Well, anyway, a couple days later, I'm sitting there in front of the desk, and I felt something like staring at me. Have you ever had that feeling like you're just sitting there and you can feel someone like staring at you, but you look around and you don't see anybody? It was just a really strange feeling. I just couldn't knock it. But, I'd be sitting there and I'd be turning around. I'd be like, am I paranoid? What's going on here? So, anyway, that kept happening. I kind of kept it to myself. I didn't want to tell my wife, or, I didn't really talk about it to anyone because I was like, they'd think I was losing my freaking mind. So, anyway, one night, about a month later, and at this time, I'm dropping weight. We're talking, I probably lost 15 pounds in that month. Yeah, something wasn't right. I wasn't feeling right, and I had these strange thoughts going through my head and everything. It was just really weird. It was bizarre. So one night, I'm sitting there in front of the television. I think it's like 1 a.m. I can't sleep. My wife had just started a job. I'm feeling like a freaking bum. Just things aren't pulling together for me, and that was unusual. So I'm sitting there in front of the television, and I see something in my peripheral. Now, let me give you an idea. Our couch sits back against the wall, and along that wall, I can look straight down, all the way down to the end of the hall, to my daughter's room, to her bedroom. So that's her door. Further up the hallway is my son's room, going back against the wall back that way. So anyway, I'm sitting there and I hear something. And I'm seeing something in my peripheral, and I look this way and there's a ball bouncing down the hallway. It's 1 a.m. I'm like, what the heck is going on? I thought my daughter's trying to play a joke on me, but she's 9 years old. So I take off running down the hall, and I'm like, what the heck? I get to her door, and I look in her room, and she's completely asleep. She's out like a light. But the way this ball was bouncing, it wasn't like someone threw the ball. It was as if someone was bouncing the ball, and it stopped right at the edge of my couch. That was a bit chilling to me. So anyway, I kind of blew it off. I was like, man, am I losing my mind? What is going on? I must be the only one seeing this. What, at this point, I'm starting to question my sanity. So anyway, about 2 nights later, my son comes walking out of his room. It's about 1 a.m. Again, about 1 a.m. And he comes over to me and he goes, Dad, why are you standing in front of my door? And I said, well, what are you talking about? He said, well, I keep seeing someone standing in front of my door, and it was waking me up. I said, I'm not standing in front of your door at all. You need to go back to bed. You're imagining things. I didn't want to scare him. But that threw alarm bells in my head again. And I'm thinking, oh man, now it's starting to turn up a little bit. So anyway, so he goes back to bed reluctantly. You know, he's like 12. He wasn't like a little kid, you know. But with him saying that was strange. So anyway, time goes on a little bit, and I keep having that feeling, keep having that depressed feeling. Man, it's just overwhelming depression. I don't even know how to explain it. I'm sure some of you out there have had depression and understand what I'm talking about. But I mean, this was just, man, it was so overwhelming. And I still couldn't eat. By this time, you know, it's probably right around November. Now, by this time, I'd finally started landing a little bit of work. Nothing much, just enough to survive, you know. But the strange things were still happening. You know, I'd still feel that feeling or a knock here or there for no reason at all. And then my kids were playing across the street with some kids. And they come running over to the house, come running in the door. And my daughter said, the girl across the street said, the preach man used to live here and he left because there's demons in this house. I just went quiet. I said, there are no demons in this house. And by this time, just to rewind a little bit, I'd already mentioned this to my wife right around October, what I was experiencing. So when my daughter comes in the door and says that, you know, my wife looked at me and I looked at her and I was like, so anyway, back to the story. So we said, no, there's nothing like that here. You know, there's nothing to worry about. So it's around Christmas time, and my wife's place where she is working there in Valrico, she worked at like a bar and grill. I won't say the name of it, but they had a party, a Christmas party. And so we went there, and there's a neighbor a couple blocks over that we had met, you know, I think at the local pool or whatever. And her daughter was going to babysit for us, which was cool, you know. But because we was only going to be gone like 2-3 hours. And this girl was like, I think 15 years old, maybe 16. And my kids were like 12 and 9. So anyway, we went up the street and went to the Christmas party. And when we came back, my son starts to tell me a story. He said, we kind of played a hide and seek thing where we turned out the lights. He said, but the babysitter kind of freaked out and turned the lights on real quick and said, we're done. And he said, she looked scared, Dad. She looked really scared. And he said, and to be honest with you, when we were playing hide and seek, I thought I seen something sitting in the chair while I was hiding. He said he looked across at the chair and it looked like something was sitting in it. So I was like, wow, that's pretty wild. You know, I didn't really say too much of anything else. So, you know, as you could see, you know, little things here and there, but it kind of started confirming things with me. Now, by this time, I was probably down 40 pounds. I wasn't even looking like the same person. And, you know, cheeks starting to sink in, just not looking right at all. And I was still going through that severe depression stuff. And anyway, my wife gets home from work right around 1 a.m. And she goes, I'm going to go ahead and go to bed. And I said, well, I'll come in there with you. And she goes, okay. So we're laying there in the bed, and she's telling me about her day. Not a big deal. We got the lights off, just laying back in the bed, just like this. And she's telling me about her day, and I'm saying, oh, okay, And then all of a sudden I heard something. And she kept talking. I was like, hold on. I was like, shh. What is that? Next thing you know, she's jumping straight up out of bed. There was breathing over on her side of the bed, a real heavy. It was absolutely insane. She jumped up out of the bed quicker than I could even think of what was going on, and she ran out of the bedroom, and here I come with her. I was like, so you heard it? She was like, yes, I did hear that. And from then on out, the rest of the time that we lived there, and probably for years after, if my wife was in the bedroom going to sleep, she had the light on. She, still to this day, she's sketchy about having the light off when she goes to bed. So, things just kept happening just like that. We signed our lease in June of 2006, and our lease was up in June 2007. Now, I was going to do a last-ditch effort in order for us to stay there, and that fell through at the last minute, and we packed our bags and got out of there as quick as we could, because the lease was up, and we went back to Ohio. It was over. We was like, no more, we're done, it's done. Anyway, welcome to the channel, guys. That's my paranormal story, or one of them anyway. But it was probably the craziest story that ever happened to me. Now, I'm sure there's many of you out there in Florida that have stories like that. But my question's this. Are any of you in the Valrico, Brandon, Tampa area, have you ever experienced anything like that in that area? Or is that a paranormal hotspot? Or did I just get unlucky and stay at this place? Crazy thing is, it was only 3 years old. The house was darn near brand new. So please tell me your comments down below. Let me know your experiences. This is my first video of the channel, and it's definitely not going to be my last, and I want to hear your stories as well. Just comment down below and let me know. Welcome to the channel, guys.